All right, welcome everyone. Monday Club. New little sub-series from EGTE, Electricians Guide to Everything.
I've completely lost all of my internet then.
Oh, you have as well. Such a bad end.
Babe, got to open that door.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Monday Club. This is a new sub-series for Electricians Guide to Everything. We're going to be doing this every Monday, as close to every Monday as we can. We'll be a week behind from you, so don't worry too much if it's not completely relevant. But it's just three guys that talk a lot, and I mean a lot, about the industry, about all the crap, about all the good, about all the stuff that goes on social media. And we thought, you know what? Maybe you guys would like to listen to it and have your 2 pennies worth in. So we're going to crack on. We don't know where it's going to go. There's no script. There's no editing. Yeah, we're just going to go with the flow. So what's your week been like, boys?
Well, I can kick this off with, it's actually been an adventure for me, really. I've picked up a number of my own jobs, basically. First and foremost is some driveway lighting on a big old house. It's a big horseshoe driveway. And yeah, start to finish, digging trenches, a whole lot. It's been a real learning curve. It's been a bit of a humbling experience, if I'm honest. I've gone from being a commercial spark, doing trunking and basic bitching, as I like to call it. And now I'm designing and making sure I'm not getting volt drops and sourcing all the bits myself and stuff like that. It's an adventure. I wouldn't say it's particularly difficult, but there's some steep learning curves that you have to get your head around. But I'm quite fortunate to have you guys on board in terms of someone I can phone to bounce some ideas off and ask questions about.
Well, you have definitely done that.
You certainly have.
No, do you know what? It's been really quite nice watching you go on this little journey, because we talk about this a lot, and it's just like, I think as an industry we forget how many point and shoot sparks, I call them. How many sparks are just told where to go, what to do, and crack on. 5 o'clock comes, whistle blows, and they go home. That's the end of their day. When you start taking on these little jobs, I'm sure Mark will agree, you start getting into all these little nitty gritties and the problems and the design and the stumbling blocks, all these little things that you come across that you don't really get that responsibility from a day-to-day agency, labour-only sparky.
Yeah, that's very true. I think, like you say, it's all the organisation of the job as well, isn't it? Sourcing materials and having to realise how much quantity of things you need, and when you actually need it to be available, it's not just as simple as turning up to lash things on the wall and second fix sockets and light switches. So it's really quite bad. One
of the things for me this week is the spiralling cost of a job. Like, you think you've accounted for everything, and then you're like, a
business owner.
Yeah, and it's just like all of a sudden you're like, an extra 200 quid has been dropped, and you're like, Jesus, where is this money going? And you know, it's that in itself has been quite a learning curve for me. I mean, I've bought 10 lights, 9 lights. Now there's 10, so that's one extra thing for everything. The whisker boxes, and then, you know, one of the things I overlooked with the whisker box, I'll be very honest about it. You know, I don't mind talking about my failures and my successes. One of the things I did is I totally forgot about doing the SWA, the armoured outside of the cable. Spoke to Neil and he said, "Have you done that?"
Well, yeah, well, so sorry about that. A little bit of technical issue there, so we're now going to go back into it. So you explained about the materials issues you've had and how it gets out of control on the job you're doing.
Yeah, it's just like, so you fork out on a load of whisker boxes. One of the things I forgot about was making sure that the armoured on the SWA has earth continuity all the way through the whisker box. And I just didn't, it's just one of them things that's so easily overlooked. It wasn't until I spoke to you and you reminded me. And then I thought, right, I'll go and get the they're called piranha nuts, but the Whisker do one specifically for their box. Now the piranha nuts don't fit in the boxes, so I ended up getting these piranha nuts because I was at the closest wholesaler. And then I had to go back out and get the Whisker ones. It was a nightmare. Wasted a good couple of hours on that job, running around trying to find the correct materials. But that's all part of the learning curve,
Yeah, exactly.
But I enjoyed it. Every single thing I've done so far on this job, I've enjoyed. I didn't take it on a price. It's on a day rate. It's from a very good friend of mine. He's worth a few quid, and he really wanted this job done. He couldn't find anyone to do it, and he asked me to step up and see if and do it for him. But he was adamant that I had to charge him the correct rate. But I took it on a day rate because I knew the added pressure of doing it on a price and not losing the profit out of the job would mean I could do a better job long term.
That's a good way of it.
How would you normally answer that question then? Day rate or price?
I think in these early stages, if you can do it on a day rate, like I've jumped from being a commercial spark, point and shoot spark, to having to design, making sure source all the products and everything like that, and you can get very, very caught out. When I initially priced this job, it was about £500 in materials. It definitely ain't nothing like that. It's more like
you're at?
I think I'm probably going to need another 300 quid in materials, because obviously they've added an extra light, the PIR sensors and the security light is more than I thought it was when I spec'd it online. All these little things that you don't take into consideration all of a sudden become, a bit of a bane. If you were doing it on a price, you'd be pulling your hair out now.
Welcome to our world.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you know what? I take my hat off.
The funny thing is that I remember being at college, and I don't know if you two remember this, but I remember being at college and you was told about this. You was like, we was taught when you used to giving little projects to price, and you was always add 5% on for connections, add 5% on for wastage, add 5% on for what they called miscellaneous, which is your nuts, your bolts, your wall plugs, all this stuff that you can forget so easily. You look, it's 5 lights, they're 50 quid each, it's 250 quid. But hang on, you ain't got that. You've got your bolts, you've got your fixings, you've got your bits out your van that you're going to use that you ain't really allowed for. All this stuff just mounts up really quickly.
Yeah,
it really does.
Even the fuel and stuff, chasing around to the wholesalers 5 million times because you've forgotten stuff you need. It all eats into the money. So while you're learning, like you are at the minute, Sam, getting on day rate isn't no bad thing, really. You can avoid a lot of the pitfalls that other people go through when we're working on price.
Well, I have been very conscious. I've given myself a time to get it done. Like, I'm not going to take the mick out of the day rate. It's a friend who wants to pay the right money to get the job done, but I don't want to screw him. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's got plenty of dough, but that's not the point. I want to do a proper job and in a proper time frame. So yeah, like today and tomorrow and Wednesday, I might be working 10-hour days, 12-hour days, just to make sure I'll get it done by the end of the week. Now, I might have had a couple of easy days last week, thinking it was going to go a lot smoother than it has. And these it's a whole learning thing. The other thing is as well, the value of an on-site guide. Now, I've got a PDF version at the moment. I've ordered the actual paperback one, but it's got to be a must-have for any job not a job in electrician, like a one-man band electrician, or even for electricians like yourselves who own companies that employ people. It must be a bit of a gift, really.
I've got my on-site guide on my desk, and we were sort of talking about this earlier, weren't we, in the week? It's like, I honestly think it's the forgotten book because there's so many books out now. And the on-site guide was the original book. I remember when I was an apprentice, there was 2 books that I mastered. One of them was a JRB handbook because it was a JRB company. And the second thing was the on-site guide. I used to take it out and read it, just to get to know the little nuances and That should be in every electrician's or engineers or even apprentices toolbox. I think it's a vital bit of kit, and it's sort of no one really talks about it anymore.
I want to give a shout out to Adrian Davey, actually, because he's a person who, you know, I was watching one of his videos. It's all about drilling holes in joists on at the correct levels and all that sort of stuff. And whilst I kind of thought, well, there's a rule of thumb to it, you know, but it shows there is a correct way of doing it, and it's so easily laid out in the on-site guide. And yeah, so shout out to Adrian for putting that video out. That jogged me to wanting to get an on-site guide. And then obviously over the conversations we've had, Neil and Mark, we've spoken about how valuable it is. And really and truly, when you're a job in Spark on a commercial job, those decisions are taken out of your hands. You just get told what to do, how to do it, and when to get it done by, and that's it. But when you're working, like, well, I've made this massive transition to doing my own work, and I've actually got quite a bit booked in for the next month. That is going to be my Bible, I would have thought.
Yeah, if you look at like when you're speccing and designing a job on a large scale, and you've got all your guidance notes and your regs and all your other material to help you get the right design in place, when the electricians are actually on site, they ain't going to have all that in the van, and it's not always going to go in as it is on the drawings. So having that on-site guide to refer to, you know, it can speed the work up on-site, and you know it's getting done in a safe way as well, because the on-site guide, as we all know, sort of errs on the side of caution. So if there is something where you need to actually calculate to get the exact size of a cable or something of that ilk, the book will always go to the safest level rather than, you know, being a bit borderline. So that's what I like about it. It gets you out of trouble in a few places when you're working on site.
You've taught me something. I didn't know that. It also, does it still have all the highlighted bits on the right hand side where it references regulations, actually directly references?
It does, yeah. The regs are shown in the itself.
Here's one I had earlier, just so happened to have.
Yeah, I got on here. Yeah, the thing I like about it as well is, especially from the industry I'm in, commercial compliance testing, there's always that throwback from other testing companies that they don't do live testing because we shouldn't be doing live working. The on-site guide actually has a page. It's the only place I've actually seen it written in black and white, clear as day, that it is an allowed process. And the live working is kind of intended to cover the testing inspection. It's page 101 of the on-site guide if anyone wants to read it, but it does actually say there live testings to be allowed.
This is a blinding conversation. I'll tell you why, because I have this argument a lot. I'll go onto normally with terms of the big tier one contractors where they'll have a no live working policy, blanket policy. It'll be in their RAMs, it'll be in their method statements, their station procedures and things like this. No live working, usually big red capital letters. And I always say, well, how do you expect us to commission your system? And it just meets with, there's no live working. Okay, I understand that, but how do you expect us to commission your system then? What do you mean? I said, well, we've got to access live terminals. We've got to do all this sort of stuff to verify that the system's safe to be handed back to you. How do we do that if there's no live working? And it ends up just being a bit of a fudge, you know. And you say it's the only place. Have you got access? There's a great health and safety executive document about live working, and it is awesome. And it's like, how do you fault find about live working?
Yeah, exactly. You can't, can you? It's part of the process of being an electrician. I totally get what they're saying, where avoid live working. So if you're opening up, you know, a light fitting to change it or whatever, you get the power off and you do it safely. But when you're trying to verify that circuits are safe, then sometimes you have to have access to internal parts while they're energized. That could be a consumer unit, distribution board, a light fitting or a light switch. It's part of the process to do initial verification and see that it's safe for use. And even when you've done compliance work, so you're doing an EICR, after you've had all those terminations apart, doing your dead tests, a good way of verifying that they're actually all being put back correctly is when you perform your ZS test at the end of that process. And it's just that final check that everything has been put back how it should be, and you still have that earth path in place. And exactly. Likewise with RCD testing as well on lighting circuits. You need access to the internal parts of those fittings to perform that test. It's something that needs to be done, and it's guidance on initial testing of installations, and page 101, and it goes on to explain a little bit as well about the ICRs and live testing within that as well. That's really good. It's something that an electrician can refer to quickly and know that actually we are allowed to do this. We have appropriate training. We've got the PPE. We've got the GS38 test probes. We can go ahead and do that safely.
Who would have thought that from an EGTE podcast you would get that technical information coming from a scholar himself, Mark Allison?
It's not like me.
Neil started it.
What makes me laugh is that Sam and I know the truth about Mark. We know how rough around the edges he really is. And as soon as you press I'm not calling it the record button anymore. I'm going to call it the Mark Gets Sensible button. As soon as it goes on, it's like, oh, okay.
You need a game face. Everyone has a game face.
You know, that this is one of the reasons I wanted to do Monday Club as well, because actually I sort of labelled myself as a basic spark, and I am. I honestly and truly am a basic spark. I've asked some basic questions recently and stuff like that, and although I'm not embarrassed by it, I'm really not. This is a path that's led me to here by doing the commercial stuff and just being a point and shoot spark. I really wanted to get more technical because I am basically, I have a very basic understanding of the electrical industry, and it's really nice to be able to get a bit more technical now, try and understand things, try and do the job properly. Now, you know, even like we had a conversation this week about digging trenches. So I've got to bury cable. We didn't know what the minimum height was, did we?
No, and I learned something new about that because I've done a little bit of delving because I think it was Mark who said 600 you'd be looking at if it was you. You're making if
that's what we would usually go to 600.
So I always thought that was a bit heavy, and as a rule of thumb, and again you pick up rule of thumbs all throughout your working life, and I was always told 450 cover, so 450 to the top of your cable. But then when I went delving on it on a conversation with Sands, thought let's just try and go down that rabbit hole, and there actually is not a minimum length as that I can find, unless you can correct me, Mark.
No, I think you're right. It covers more the utilities coming into a premises than actual cables, sort of like final circuits. And I think it's the practice to try and get them down.
What you do have to have is you have to have a clear change of material, or surface. You have to have a clear change.
So now sand.
So sand.
Yep.
But that should be. There's no real. I don't think there's a technical what depth that should be, but my brother, the beast that he is, he's been building since he was a kid. He reckons it should be a 3-inch change of material. That's quite a lot of sand. I'm not going to lie. I've gone for a few bags of sand to sort of achieve that sort of depth. But you've also got to have your.
So is that actually written in a standard somewhere on a domestic premises that you need to be doing that? Because when I went down this road with you, and we had the chat earlier, it was like, when I started thinking about it, well, of course, why would there be a minimum? Because every installation is different. You wouldn't accept probably a 600 cover for a utilities network is obviously risk assessed into the sort of machinery that's going to be digging up streets, okay? But why would you need that in... And this is an open question, it's not a leading question. Why would you need a 600 cover in someone's flower bed? Or what? You know what I mean? When you're thinking the biggest thing is to go in there is probably a 300 mil shovel, you know? So it's about looking at the environment you're in and thinking what's likely to be here. And how, also, you may not be able to go down. So you may well go, you know what I'm going to do, I'm going to go down 250 and put a steel plate over the cable. You know, so I really thought that this is a good way for the owners to go on to the electrician to look at what he's doing and come up with a good solution to tick all the boxes so it doesn't import any adverse risk.
Well, that's what I had to do. You know, one of the listen, I'm going to blow a bit of smoke up your ass now, Neil. One of the things I've learnt from our interactions over the last year or so is approaching things logically and logicking it out and looking at things pragmatically. Like we'll get onto this in a bit, you know, like pen faults and stuff like that, and how that doesn't actually affect you if you're not in direct contact with the earth. So if you've got a pen fault in the house, it doesn't really matter because it's you're isolated from the earth. We get to the technical side. I might have butchered that, but what I'm saying is, when it comes to burying the cable, I definitely butchered it. But you know what I mean. We'll get to that in a sec. But when you look at, so we're digging down and we've hit a layer of like flint, like loads of flint. I don't know what it is. It might just be the natural geoformation of that part of the world. But we've hit this layer of flint. We're about 300 down, and I really, it's one side's a 30-meter trench, the other side's a 20-meter trench, and I didn't think we needed to go down any further than that. So we've laid the cable, we've laid the tape over it, and we put the 3 inches of sand and we filled it back in. I'm happy with that, because when you look at the risk of digging into it, there isn't really any risk, because you've informed the house owner of the depth you've gone down to. They know where the cable. You've told them where the cable's been buried. You've done it all according to how you should do it. So if they ever have any work, they now know that it's 300 down. Is within a foot of the curb that you're dug down beside. So where is the risk?
Also, you've put warning tapes. I've seen your photos, and you've done the change of colour. So in terms of control measures to mitigate that risk, I don't know what Mark thinks, but I think you've pretty much ticked every single box. Short of putting a steel plate up over it.
Yeah, listening to you both there, you've just talked through engineering judgment, haven't you, really? So each installation, like you say, is different. We've come across cables going down to workshops in farmyards where they are down 600 mil because there's good likelihood that they're going to be digging with machinery in the fields to put fence posts up and things like that. They have come close on a few occasions where we've been called to inspect cables that have been lifted but not damaged on agricultural premises. But then, like you say, if you're going down someone's flower bed, is there really the same risk in that environment to go to the same lengths? And we all know when we've seen in people's domestic gardens, usually you're lucky if you've got a bit of SWA strung down the fence to an outbuilding or something. It's not likely it gets buried very often, is it? Let's be honest. And getting
you're lucky if it's even SWA. Let's be
that's it. I've just had one the other week. It was just flexing the ground, and it was only about 150 mil down. So I mean, it's not like every installation is going to be perfect and to the book of utility regulations, because that engineering judgment tells you that it's not necessary, is it? So,
sorry, Neil. That's one thing I definitely did. Is I didn't. So I used a bit of contractor's pack, Copex, in the middle of. So what I've done is I put down a post-creep plinth, and then we put a bit of Copex down the middle of and out the side of the plinth, and then I've actually connected that directly into the whisker box. So even the flex coming out has got double layer protection on it, just because water will find a way in, and I didn't think a stuffing gland was suitable. Obviously, I'm going to fill it with magic gel, but there's all these little things that you now have to use your engineering judgment when you're working by yourself for the best outcome possible. What you definitely don't want is to do the job, and then a year later you've got water ingress where you haven't done it properly, and you've got to go back and you look like a bit of a div that you've gone back and because you haven't done something right the first time. And I definitely do not want that to happen.
No, none of us want that to happen, and this is the thing. And sometimes this is sort of to go back on the books. This is where books, electricians sometimes can be their own worst nightmare in terms of allowing books to take away their engineering judgment, when we should be using books to inform our own engineering judgment and make sure that we're handing over something that we are happy with, not that something that was said in a book, because that may not be suitable. The amount of comments I see on social media, well, Codebreaker said this, or Best Practice Guide said this, or this said that. Okay, but what do you think? You was there. Don't just sit there and just take that as I'm doing it. And Sam, this is recorded, and stop checking your hair. It is so off-putting.
No, do you know what? I don't want it to look like I've got curtains. I've just got out of the shower. It's all fluffy. What do you want?
I want you to stop doing that.
Well, listen, it's an EGTE podcast. We can be so technical without me pouncing around.
Because I'm worth it. Sponsored by Weller.
You can be smart and good looking. Of course you can.
Well, I haven't got quite to the smart level yet, but one day.
My beard is looking a bit rough at the minute, I must be honest with you. But, mind you, it could be worse. I could have like a goatee going on, couldn't I?
Yeah, cheers.
It looks like D'Artagnan from Cheers.
Dogtanian. Remember that one?
Oh, God.
Oh dear. No, but we do lose. There's so many that losing their engineering judgment. So many that you're losing it because it says something in a book. It's like, well, what do you think? You know what I mean? Where's your responsibility in all this? You've got to have some. What did I hear
Why
for a
don't you
comment?
tell us about your week, Neil? Just tell us about what you... Listen, I want to get on to Mark in a minute because he's done 3 countries this week. But let's talk about you this week, mate. What have you been up to?
Well, it's Monday, so we'll talk about last week, all right?
All right, mate. You know what I mean.
Well, I was doing... was it last week? Was it last week I mailed it? No.
Sitting around under a lemon tree in your swimming pool in Portugal, sending us photos of you tanning yourself. No one wants to see it. No one wants to see you tanning yourself under a lemon tree, bro.
Last week I had to put right after a lot minor hip mishap with an audit I had. So we got pulled up on something that we should have had in place, or in their opinion we should have had in place. We disagreed, but that'd be for another podcast. And I'd spent last week making sure that we could evidence that we had put that thing right. So that's what I've done last week, on top of many other things. I'm an office bod now. I work in the office. I do paperwork. Not very exciting.
Don't do a lot, though, do you, mate? Let's be fair. I'm only saying it because I'm jealous, and it's where I want to be in a couple of years' time, is sitting there just like, drinking beer and phoning me all day.
I'm going to be honest, right? My days of grafting are gone. I don't graft anymore. I have grafted. I've grafted ridiculous amounts, all right? Them days are gone. I stress in other ways now. Mark would probably appreciate this. I worry about other things, finances, paying people, invoices. My stresses have gone from my muscle stresses to my knees and my back to brain and that sort of mental stresses. So it's a different game, but yeah, my guys work. We're a good team, and for any successful business, you need a good team. I've got shit hot metal munchers. I've got great testers, and I sort of oversee in the sort of technical realm of things and the business mind of things. Any one of them cogs stops turning, business stops very, very quickly.
Mark, tell us about your week, mate, because I know you've been all around the place, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Like you said, last week I started off in Wales, and then I've been over in England most of last week, and now I'm actually up in Scotland for a week of work, doing some compliance audits. But on top of all that, as you know, we've got the apprentice 1-to-1 thing going, and whatever you did over the weekend, just sent that into...
Shameless plug.
Yeah, I could get that in there. But no, I sent it into orbit. So like this morning, I had about 35 emails, I think it was, to get back to people. So wow. I mean, I've signed up for doing that, so that's my responsibility to get on with doing it. But it's a learning curve for me, taking all of that on, because you don't want to let people down at the end of the day.
It is a tough. Sorry, mate, I've cut you off.
Sorry.
It's a tough one. I did something very similar with the union. When I set up the electrical workers branch of Ricky, we some days I'd have like 5 or 6 people ringing me up to get paid, and it's like you took this responsibility on, and it's almost all you can think about to make sure you deliver what you've promised, and it can be quite overbearing sometimes.
Yeah, it can do. And I originally thought it was just going to be people getting in touch wanting jobs, but you know what? A lot of them are just wanting a bit of technical support as well, because they haven't had the apprenticeships that maybe myself and Neil had, and even yourself more recently, Sam, that they've not had the hands-on tutoring from a mentor, and they're lacking the knowledge and ability to take on something like their AM2, so they're asking for technical help as well. That was something I wasn't really expecting to see. And I often wonder if, it's like Neil said, a lot of these books that are out there, spoon-feeding information into people, it's taking away that confidence to believe in your own ability and judgment.
Do you know what? It's funny. I've even been hitting you up for some technical advice this week. So, it's about, I think it's about, like we're big supporters of Apprentice 1-to-1, but we're also big supporters of, building a community of people that you can have those technical chats with, bounce some even if it's a basic question, just to make sure that you're right. You know, someone in my situation, you know, I've taken this big leap. It's nothing special, do you know what I mean? But to have someone to phone up and just bounce some ideas off, bounce some questions off without judgment. Yeah, we'll mock each other. What, like, are you seriously asking me that question? But at the end of the day, it's all in goodwill.
At the end of the day, we all want that person to go on the same way. Do we? We all want to improving, you know. And
yes.
Everyone's got to take a bit of stick. It's part and parcel of the course, you know. You wouldn't expect anything less, as long as it's all, you know, when you remember who you're talking to and all that sort of thing. But you know what? Seeing you go on this journey, you say it ain't nothing special, but for me, I think it's when you're pushing your own boundaries, that is special. I mean, whatever them boundaries are, boundaries are all relative, and the ability to do the job that you know and be competent is relative. There is no one shoe fits all. So when you see someone sitting there and wanting to make the right decisions, wanting to ask the right questions, worried about making the wrong moves, that to me, I can't put in words how excited that gets me as a person who loves this industry. It just gets me going, and I'll sit there all day and have that conversation with someone. I love it. I love it.
I'll be very honest. This is what frustrates me about a lot of the naysayers about the industry. Yes, it's tough to be able to make a good living and to be good at what you do, but the industry is fantastic. I mean, I'm feeding my family and putting money away in a very sensible way at the moment from this industry. Everything I have, the fact I've moved to the coast, the fact that I've got my, it is a shed, but it is going to be the EGTE headquarters. You know, all these little things that I have come directly from the industry, and the podcast comes from the industry. Everything comes from the industry. The friendships I have with you and Mark and Rick and a million other people all comes from the industry and a shared passion. And I think that gets away from people sometimes. It's not all doom and gloom. And I'll tell you what it is. It's almost a meritocracy. You get out of it what you put in if you put it in smartly. You can be a busy idiot and get nothing from it. But if you do it smartly, you listen to people, you open yourself up to criticism, and you listen to the advice around you, and you be brave and make your own decisions. And, you know, it's just about approaching it as like a confident adult. There's a really great quote that I've seen banging about on the internet. Attack life like a 7-year-old in a Batman t-shirt.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. It's so true. It's
so true, isn't it?
If you, the thing is, only men will understand that quote.
Yes.
If I said that to my wife, you're like,
huh?
What? There's a little part of me in my mind right now is going, yes, here's my Batman shirt. You know what I mean? It's a little tiny part of me is doing it.
And, you know, like, it's just, you know, being positive will open up positive doors. You'll be able to chat to people like yourselves, you know, and you start bouncing off each other. Like, if you look at me a couple of years ago, I was working on some dreadful sites, miserable every day, really sad about going to work. I even went for a real bout of depression where I was sitting at a train station. I sat at the train station not wanting to go to work so much. I sat there not crying like blubbering, but just sitting there with tears in my eyes, watching the trains go past because I couldn't get on it and face another day doing another day of bullshit. And I was really down about it. And it wasn't until the guy I'm doing the work for now sort of just said, like, well, it's completely in your control to change it. You're hoping for someone else to come along and give you a solution, but actually it's in your control. And ever since that conversation, it's a bit more to it than that, but that was the gist of the conversation, has really propelled my life in a very positive way. And, you know, this isn't Sam's self-help hour, but, you know, it's just
in more than an hour.
It's just a positive story that I want to share with everyone, because the industry is what you make it. And I really believe that.
I agree with you, Mark, Sam. That's you know, your story you're telling then. It's probably really common among so many tradespeople as well, that you just get fed up in like Groundhog Day, don't you?
Yeah.
Doing the same old crap that you don't really like, but you've done it just forever and it pays the bills. And like your new employers made you aware that it's all in your control if you go out and look for that. But you don't know what you don't know, do you? Until someone actually leans you towards that. I think there's loads of people stuck in jobs like that now, and they just don't know a way out. And that's why we have this mental health crisis among so many tradespeople as well.
Oh, do you know what? I think it's a massive thing. And do you know what? I do have a lot of pressures on me. I mean, meeting bill, same old pressures that anyone's got. You've got to meet your bills. You know, you've got to support your family. You've got to make. I'm running 2 cars. I'm running a house. All that sort of stuff. They're all relative. You know, and money doesn't make you happy, but it gives you options. And by being brave, going out there and earning that money, pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, like even you and Neil, you took that brave step to take people on. That is a big step. Neil, you telling me about that the other day, about taking your first person on.
Still remember it. Still remember just putting it off and putting it off and putting it off and putting it off and just thinking, how am I going to afford to pay them? What if work dries out? Made all these things. And then 6 months after I took them on, it was like, what was I thinking? How can I afford not to take another person? You know what I mean? It was nuts. And I know it is a scary thought, but I look at it now, and some people will say, like, how can you afford to pay that person that much? And I don't look at it like that. I think, well, how can I afford not to have that person? Because if he's working, I'm earning profit. You know, and there's so many. We was talking about earlier, the difference between tradesmen and businessmen.
Yes.
Lots of tradesmen ain't got a clue about it. I'm talking to someone on Twitter today, and I'm getting hooked into it. I'm going to walk away from it because I just can't debate this sort of mentality. It was like someone put on there, would you go and change it? I'm sure it doesn't matter about the manufacturer. Would you go and change a smoke detector for £62.50? I was like, no. That's in my opinion. And I try to remove myself from the game I'm in, the industrial commercial railway game, and go into a domestic setting. To me, that's £100 plus materials job. Not because it's, £100 an hour, but because that will take 2 hours of my time. And I'm not talking about on the job. I'm not talking about unscrewing it. I'm talking about for the minute I leave my house, drive to a place, I think I broke it down. You've got a 20-minute drive, argument's sake, 10 minutes meet and greet the customer, 20 minutes doing a job, 10 minutes packing away, 20 minutes drive home, 15 minutes on the paperwork to get it all raised up. I think it comes to about an hour and 40 minutes, hour and 45 minutes. You ain't filling in that other 15 minutes. It's a 2-hour job. And I've got people that go, you're at it, you are. 5 minutes, in and out, bosh. I'm like, you can't debate that. I'm like, if you honestly think that's going to take 5 minutes of your time to do that, yeah, it may well take 5 minutes when you're there with your screwdriver ready to go. Right, stop clock, go. Yeah, 5 minutes done. But what all the other stuff you've got to account for? And people were sitting there going, yeah, I'll do it for £62.50. I was like, I also broke down the figures. I was like, well, if you take that £62.50, divide that by 2, there's, what's that, £31 an hour. Take your fuel, take your overheads, take your insurance, take your calibration, take all these little costs off it, your wear and tear, your MOTs, your repairs for all this crap. Take all this off, plus pay yourself £25. It worked out about a £6 loss. I was like, you're not even thinking. You're not even thinking about this. You think that £30 an hour is your take-home profit. It ain't. That's more like it's going to £20 an hour by the time there's nothing in it. But these people are like, nah, 5 minutes, bosh, done. What are you talking about, mate? You're at it, you are. Yeah, okay.
I'll be honest with you. There's I've spoken about it before on the podcast. Nextdoor app. It's an app that people post up jobs that they need doing around their house. You just go and do them, and I call it low hanging fruit. There's jobs that just going, like, they've got pendants up and they bought some fittings from, I don't know, whatever, John Lewis. They bought some fittings and they need them put up. You know, that's low hanging fruit, man. That is literally turn up. It's £50 an hour, 2 hours, you're out. That is all profit. But when you talk about, when you talk about it like that, that's a different ball game, isn't it?
Well, the trouble is, the difference is you're talking about people that are going. If you're going to go in and have none of them overheads, then yeah, there's money in the bank. But if you want to do business like that, that's not someone I want to be doing business with. That's not someone I'm going to have in my house. I want someone who's properly accredited, insured. If something goes wrong, I'm covered. I want all these things in place. I have a quite a simple rule. If someone turns up in my house to do a job and they look like a mess or their van's a mess, they ain't doing no work in my house. It's a bit of an old school thought, but I'm just like, if you can't take care of yourself, you ain't going to take care of my work. You ain't going to take care of my house. And it's like, I think you call it low-hanging fruit. For me, they're the sort of jobs that most, I reckon, maybe, and I'm just guessing here, 80, 85, 90% of people probably ain't insured. Probably, and the people that are advertising jobs probably don't give a shit, you know? And in that scenario, it is money in the bank. But if you're trying to do a reputable, I can't debate you or anyone else if your starting point is doing things dodgy. Then we're not comparing apples and apples, are we?
No,
not at all. I think like it's the sole trader approach, isn't it? And we're thinking more of it from a business point of view. So I bet in your figures, Neil, you've got calculations in there for bad debts and revisits when you've got manufacturer's equipment that's failed. And a lot of stuff like that wouldn't enter a small sole trader's mindset. So, you know, they're not really set up in that way to start with. So like you said, you're not comparing apples with apples.
But do you think you should have been, Mark?
Well, yeah, that's exactly the problem I was sort of leading back towards. We're speaking to apprentices like I am. We were saying there's not many coming into the industry to start with anyway, and we already can't find them enough jobs. Even before COVID-19, there wasn't enough job placements for all the people who want to be apprentice electricians. And we've been told all the time that there's a huge skill shortage and there's not enough people entering the industry. So where the hell are all these jobs? And I think it comes back to these small traders who aren't charging enough money because they're not thinking enough as businessmen and taking on those apprentices. You go back like 20, 30 years, every sole trader would have an apprentice. All of them would. And how many do you see now that do that? They just think it's unaffordable. It's going to take too much out of the money I would need to pay myself. And it's not the case. If you price your jobs properly and run the apprenticeship properly, you get payback from that big time over 4 years. You know, you've got to get out of that mentality of, well, I'm going to charge £60 an hour and that's what I've got to take everything out of. It's the wrong way of going about it. You need to figure out what that actual cost is to run your business per hour, then what you'd like to make for yourself on top of that, and then some sort of coverage for the things that go wrong, like the rainy day money. And that's what you need per hour. Not just because industry dictates you work for £60 an hour. It's a nonsense. And if we're going to get back to some sort of normality in the electrical industry of having an apprentice system, we need to drastically change things. We see it all the time on social media of people saying, oh, it's the CPS's fault, it's the training provider's fault, this has happened, that's happened. I'm saying as a collective, as a whole community of electricians, we've been ballsing this up now for 10, 15, maybe 20 years, and it's up to us to put it right. We can't keep looking at government, awarding bodies, anyone like that. We've got to take responsibility. And through Apprentice One-to-One, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get that message into small employers. And I know it's difficult now because we've got this COVID thing and there isn't the work there that there normally is. But in normal times, we have to change that mindset.
I couldn't agree more.
One of the things I've been hearing a lot from certainly the customers I've picked up. I haven't got many, but a couple of really good customers that I've picked up in the last couple of weeks. They are struggling to get people to turn up. That is the biggest criticism I've had at the moment. Now, how many electricians would like to do digging trenches and all that sort of stuff? And basically a lot of groundwork, laying postcrete for the slab and then putting the slab, drilling through a slab, then knocking up muck to stick the slab to the postcrete and then fixing the fit into it. A lot of them don't want to get involved in that side of things, and that's understandable. But even to the point where they can't even get electricians to come round. I mean, they phone them up, yeah, I'll be round tonight, and then they don't turn up, and then they won't answer the phone for a couple of days. There's a lot of that going on.
Always
well, certainly in my experience, and it comes down to my 3 golden rules. Be presentable, honour your commitments, and be competent. That's all you really got to do to pick up work. Certainly only according to my knowledge and the conversations I've been having with customers, there's work out there. You just got to turn up and be presentable, really, and you'll get it.
And make yourself known, really, yeah. But I mean, to go back to what you're saying is like with if you're charging yourself a sole trader at £30 an hour, then really you're on £20 an hour. Really.
Maximum.
That's
You know,
the most.
and this is what people don't. They talk in numbers like people do it with mortgages all the time. They say, "Oh, I bought my house for 200 grand, sold it for 300." Yeah, but they don't tell you that the mortgage was 280 grand. You know what I mean? Over the interest over the 20 years, and they do the same with figures. They go, "Oh yeah, I'm on £30 an hour," but you're not really, are you? You're not really on £30 an hour because by the time you spent an extra 3 hours a night or 2 hours a night doing your paperwork and your crap, you got to add that. You're doing that for free, so you got to take that off your day's money, you know. And we just got to get into this mentality of trying to understand your value and understand where you need to be to make your money. You know, it's just at £30 an hour, you're touching £20 an hour. I don't care what anyone says.
I think you'll be lucky to touch £20 an hour. If one thing goes wrong at £30 an hour, that's it. You've lost probably half a day's money or possibly a whole day's money with one mess up. That's like today when we come out. So we went and picked up these slabs, special slabs, dark colour slabs, and as we got out, the trolley bumped on the curb, and one of the slabs gone instantly. And I was like, "There's a tenner. That's a tenner gone." Because I can't go to the customer. Well, we broke one, so you still got to buy another one. No, I've got to go back in and buy it. Now, those little things, if you're charging just a bare minimum that you think you can, oh, listen, no one's going to pay more than 30 quid an hour. Now I'm on 20 quid an hour, and that's before anything else. You know, it's so easy to get wrapped up in these numbers, and people are quite. I think what it is, I think it might be a British thing. I don't know, but
it's a face thing. It's not losing face.
People are very worried about asking for their value, their worth. You know, as an electrician, what are you worth? What is? Listen, today it's funny. We're talking about £30 an hour. The gardeners turned up at this place today. They're on £50 an hour. Do you know what I mean? And like everyone, like my brother's like £50 an hour. Go and get a strimmer. We're going to be gardeners. I'm like, but do you know what I mean? £50 an hour for a gardener. So why? So the mentality is, well, they're only there for 2 hours. They probably got 3 or 4 jobs on today. They're going to go around 2 hours here, 2 hours there, 2 hours there. That's a good day's money, isn't it?
Well, the thing is,
great day's money.
It's a status thing, isn't it? It's like kitchens. Why do people spend so much on kitchens but spend fuck all on their consumer unit? It's a status thing, and you know, you got to ask yourself, are we in the wrong industry? You know, I mean, kitchen fitters having it right off, aren't they? Really, anything where it's a status, I think, is it's a loss of
I don't
money.
think we're in the wrong industry. I think you two certainly ain't in the wrong industry. You ain't. You're living on a ranch in Portugal, drinking beers under a lemon tree in a swimming pool. All right, I'm not saying I'm not taking anything away from you. You worked hard to get there, but the industry's done you very well, and you ain't breaking your back fitting granite work surfaces, are you?
No, I can't even afford to buy one, let alone fit one. That made me laugh.
Lying.
Oh, this industry, like you said, Sam, this industry's given me everything. You know, we've got to be more positive about it. It's given me absolutely everything.
We have got to be more positive, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking forward, if we actually analyse it properly, being an electrician is probably one of the most promising trades to be in, because they're getting rid of gas heating, so it's all going to be going towards electric heating, you would assume. You've got the EV charging that's going to be going in every home. There's all this smart tech that's
smart
coming
homes.
We should literally need, you know, tons more electricians, and there should be opportunities for all of them to make good money. But it's getting out of that mindset, I think, that because so many electricians are sole traders, there's a large portion of the way the industry works. It's changing that mindset to become more business owners and building that workforce, because it's not happening anymore. And there's so many apprentices who've got in touch with me, and they've done like level 1, level 2, and they just can't find employers. They've been leaving CVs and covering letters in wholesalers, getting in touch with people like us, going through the government's website, and every time they fill in the information, it's just nothing. So, you know, something that's not just through COVID either. This is going back years. I mean, we had one the other day. We got a job after 4 years of looking. It's just crazy. And, you know, we need to look more carefully ourselves at what we can do to change things. Everyone's talking about it. I don't know about you guys as well, but on social media, it's often all the same people who are talking. And I wonder if the way that we're all sort of communicating in that environment is putting other people off, speaking up. Because we're all quite positive in the way we help each other. I don't know how you see it, but social media to me is sometimes a bit of a toxic place, and it's just people trying to seem superior and more intelligent. And it's not healthy for getting people to come forward and ask for this help, I don't think.
I think in terms of inspiring the youngsters, social media is not where it should be.
Falling short.
There is so little inspiration. Don't get me wrong, there's masses of inspiration that people have already got it. I'll look around and go, oh my God, you've dropped that information. Oh my God, this guy's Mark Allison, for example, with his one-to-one. I look at that and go, wow. All right. But if I was a 15, 16, 17-year-old youngster, I'd go on social media, I'd just go, God, everyone's just coating this industry off. Everyone's just coating this industry off. No one likes it. Why would I join this? Sod that, I'll go and be a plumber. You know what I mean? It's just we've got to get more positive. And I've been quite vocal on social media in terms of calling people out and say, come on, guys, we can't keep moaning about the same crap. What's the solution? Where are we going to go forward?
It changes nothing.
No.
It changes nothing. And this is one of my biggest problems with the rows of. I am not very eloquent. I certainly don't have the patience to be eloquent via text or on social media.
Or in person, or on the phone, or via email, or via fax.
I'm just not that guy. And I tend to just say things in quite a raw way. But the gist of it is, lighten up. It's a decent trade. It's given me everything. It's given you two everything. And you two are smashing it. And I could only hope in 5 years to be where you guys are, smashing life, having great businesses that you're very proud of. But like Mark said, it's going in a million different directions as well. You've got EV, you've got solar, you've got wind farms, you've got all kinds of stuff going on. It's incredible time. This is probably one of the most dynamic times in electrical history in terms of the revolution that's going on around the electrical industry in general, and electrical technology, from solid state batteries and DC and all that sort of stuff. That's going to be a massive part of the electrical industry going forward. DC is taking over going forward. Getting your AC to the DC point and then understanding the witchcraft that goes on to then make DC and then run your house and your car and, I don't know, your spaceship, whatever you want off of it is, it's a whole nother game. And people who are the first movers in that game will make a lot of money. And there's just so much stuff in the industry that you can get excited about. And not only that, not only are we on the verge of this massive change in the way energy is consumed and electricity is consumed and then put back into the grid, we're now looking at it's all at your fingertips to be able to learn and find out where to go and learn the proper courses, podcasts, webinars, all this positive stuff that's out there, just giving back, feeding this information. You could literally sit there for 3 weeks and learn. And
I lost myself for 3 months with solar and EV. Just lost myself for 6 months. Ridiculous. 3 months. It was just such a rabbit warren of information. And the funny thing is, I've done a design for my house. We won't go into this now, but I started off doing a rough design specification for my house. Didn't like it. I went through every single solar battery, bloody well back, end up back on I started. I ended up with exactly the same stuff as I started.
It's amazing. It's amazing times, and the fact that you can just get so much information at your fingertips. And then if you want to double down on that information and do a webinar, you can do that. And then if you want to double down further and you actually want to go and do the course on it to make sure that you've crossed your T's and dotted your I's, you can do that. You can even do it online. You don't even need to go somewhere now to do the courses. A lot of it's online.
Which may not be a good thing, let's be honest.
Hey?
It may not be a good thing on this online thing. I suppose jury's out on that one. We'll see what happens. But
it's not a good thing if you're not passionate about it. If you're just doing it to say, oh, I've got this qualification, I've got that qualification, they're throwaway qualifications that make you think. If you're attacking it like someone who's trying to build a business and a future, and you're trying to learn and you want to understand it and you're getting the best you can from it, it's like anything in life. It's what you make it. Success is directly proportionate to the amount of effort put in. That's it.
If we look at it from our point of view as people who are in the industry already, there's so much there where we can go and learn. But at the minute, I'm looking at it from like an apprentice's point of view, looking towards this industry. Everyone's talking about all this stuff, and it's like at grassroots, it's just burning to the ground. It's all on fire, and no one's doing anything to put it out. We're all occupied learning about EV, and we're discussing things on webinars and podcasts. But no one seems to be actually focusing on this massive issue. And I think it's been going on for longer than just through this COVID pandemic. That's why I've just started looking at it just now. It's been a learning experience for me. I wasn't really aware quite how bad it was till then. So for people like us who are in the industry, there's all this stuff. We can learn so much. And it is really good and really positive. But I'm not sure that enough people are looking back down the chain at the moment to see what's going on. And we'll try and put that right while we've got chance. Because like we've just said, there's such a massive opportunity for everyone in the future. Let's get our house in order now. Let's try and all level up together, make the industry have a bit more money in it so we can employ apprentices. And then when this all comes to fruition over the next 5, maybe 10 years, we can absolutely smash it and be the best trade that there is out there.
Yeah, it used to be like at one point, didn't it? It was the lauded trade.
I do think that the whole apprentice thing that you're talking about is a massive, massive issue that is being overlooked. The one thing I will say about is it up to us as business owners? I say that very loosely about myself. You know, I'm 2 weeks in. Talk to me in 3 years' time whether I'm back on a site in, I don't know, Greenwich or something. You know, from what I've learned from you guys, the very first thing that you need to be looking at is to take on an apprentice. Almost, if you can get 6 months' work ahead of you, or even 3 months' work ahead of you, and you take on an apprentice, it frees up time to go and find more work. It gives you the ability to, you know, those important. Listen, I'm a lazy guy, right? I'll be very honest about it. But you know, you get your tools. I have a plastic tote. I put all my tools for that job. You know, you get there, you sit down, you start making off the box, and you're like, oh my God, I've forgotten the crimps. And now you got to go back, and then you got to get the crimps. But whereas if you've got
you want a apprentice for that, do you?
Yeah, but those things are important. Those time savers are important. As a one-man band,
I'm playing with you. It's vital. It's learning the trade. It's learning the pecking order. It's absolutely vital that's
all
part
those
of
little things.
Someone has to go back and get it. Exactly.
But then they come back and like at that early stage, they don't know what a crimp is. They don't know what a lug is. The difference between a lug and a crimp and this and that. There's all these things, and all that's vital information for them going forward. And then you sit them down with you, and you show them how to do it, and then they're doing the next one for you. It's up to you to go over and check it, make sure it's cushy. But really and truly, they like that synergy that you have with an apprentice is priceless. And do you know what? It is my first goal as on this new quest, whether it lasts or not, I don't know, would be to have an apprentice. I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it.
You can make them in your own mould, can't you? Like you said, it's good for them and it's good for you. But I'm not.
I don't know if I'd make them in a mould of me. I'm sure.
I wouldn't try. Yeah, I wouldn't try and encourage anyone to sort of stretch themselves to feel obliged to take apprentices. I'm just really making the point that the CPSs, if we like, and the training industry have had a way with everyone's money for a long time now, and they ain't interested in solving this problem. I don't think. I mean, I might be wrong, but that's my opinion. I think if electricians actually come together, then we can make it our responsibility and we can change it. But it's getting into that mindset of making more money through apprentices rather than them costing you money.
I think a lot of people get... Sorry, Mark, I keep doing it. Sorry, mate. I thought you'd finished.
Yeah.
One of the things I think about with the CPS schemes, and people always moaning about them, end of the day, they're a business. They're about their bottom line. They're not trying to be... Yes, they could be more ethical and stuff like that, but what ethics and business? Ethics
it's lazy argument, Sam.
If it suits.
It's a lazy argument, Sam. It's I don't want to do anything about it, so who can I blame? They're not going to bite back because they're too big to bite me back. So I'm just going to go on to them on social media and blame it all on them. But how many people do I see moaning about the state of the industry that are not taking on apprentices? How many people I see moaning about the electrical industry that ain't doing anything positive for the electrical industry?
But what do they think their CPSs are going to do? Because
Exactly.
they've actually got no real control over it.
I took on apprentices. I started my job apprentices because I couldn't find the right kind of electricians to fit my business. Now, I'm quite difficult to work for. I like things the way I like them, and it's not really up for much debate, right? So I'm quite difficult to work for. I'm fully aware of that. So
you see, my hair is getting like more fluffy as the night goes on. It's unacceptable.
Just completely trampled over my flow there, didn't he? I've whitened it in.
in.
No, but so my point of having an apprenticeship was to bring some people into the industry with the level of respect for their work that I want. And you ain't going to really find anyone that cares about your business like you do. So why not try and get that someone 16 and mold them into thinking this is how it should be done? So for me, it's about protecting my business to make sure I can keep doing business in 10, 15, 20, 30 years by bringing in people that just know my way of doing things and how I want it done. To me, that's a protection of my business for the future.
That's a solution, isn't it? It's easy for somebody to say, this is the problem, this is everything that's wrong. But I tend to try and be myself, try be the solution to something, not highlight the problem or be the problem. That's what you've done. You've solved the problem for yourself, finding the right people to work in your business for the future, not been defined by industry that it's too expensive to have apprentices. And you've gone and done it.
Such a dumb argument. There's no social media thing.
I think
there's so many people just saying like,
it's ridiculous.
That's why I can't do it. There's no government support. It's because of the CPS or the training industry. But what are you actually doing yourself? Are you trying to make yourself better to make more money? Are you actually looking at what funding is there? Do you even know? Because it's not just the government funds. Some local councils will fund apprenticeship schemes on top of government money. You investigated that. I just think it's a lazy argument.
I agree. And it's a wrong argument because it doesn't stack up.
If I push back against that a little bit, maybe it brings us full circle to the original
on-site guide.
No, not quite the on-site guide, but the whole businessman versus tradesman side of things. Like, if you're a tradesman running a business, maybe you don't think of things like that, and maybe, so maybe you just don't think of things like that. And a fundamental, I don't know, maybe like I know you don't like business coaches. However, maybe some people could benefit from a business coach in like doing what they do as tradesmen.
I think so, Sam. I mean, I've seen that some people don't like business coaches, and I don't feel myself like I need one. But for the first 5 years, probably. The first 5 years of having my business, I was that busy fool. I was running around doing crazy hours and crazy jobs for silly money. I've been there and done it. So I'm speaking from experience myself. But it doesn't have to be like that.
12, 13, 14-hour days.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? But we've probably all been there and done it and learned through that experience. So maybe back then, if I'd had some sort of business coaching, I might have been able to avoid that pain. So we can't just rule it out because of where we are now in our careers. For some people, it will be a valid solution to try and get into that mindset.
I can't stand business coaches. I just can't stand
I know you can't.
Yeah, but you're a different beast. You're a different beast.
I just don't think anyone can advise anyone about fundamentally knowing who they are. What makes them tick? What's their industry? How long does it take to second fix a socket? I mean, maybe I could be schooled on it, but I just can't get into the top. I think it's snake oil salesmen. That's what I think. They're trying to sell snake oil to people.
Yeah,
Sam had John on his podcast talking about it, and if you've seen, I forget his second name now, but if you see him on LinkedIn,
John McCullough,
you will see that he will often say, "I aren't an expert in your trade. I don't know anything about it, but I am an expert in running a business, in marketing. I can teach you all that things, and it's a trade in itself." Maybe he's right to a point. I don't know.
I do think that there's people out there. Some people running like a one-man band business that are beyond help because they're so set in their ways that they're just going to do it that way forever. But then there's some people out there. Like, I benefit from the conversations I have with yourself, certainly the benefit from the conversations I've had with Neil, I've approached this endeavour, like this going out, getting these couple of jobs by myself, very, very differently to what I would have done perhaps a year ago because of the conversations I've had with Neil. Now, although he's not consciously being a business coach or mentor or anything like that, I'm still taking cues from a proper businessman in the way I attack things. And I think that is valuable in itself. And I'm not saying let's have a support network where we all ask Neil questions about business. What I'm saying is, like, I think there is a value out there to people who really don't understand business. I'm going to get real geeky now. I'm a Star Trek fan, and I often refer to Neil as a Ferengi, and they're like these. I don't know anyone out there.
Look at Mark's face. I love it. It's exactly like my face.
What the hell is that?
What the hell are you on about?
Listen,
there's a select few people now going, oh, Ferengi.
Yeah, it's true. And he is. And all he thinks about is profit, and good business judgment and good business decisions. And some of the times he comes out with stuff and I think, what is he talking about? And then I go away and think about it and I'm like, oh, right. Yeah, makes sense. And some people aren't businessmen. Some people aren't passionate about being businessmen. They want to be the best tradesman they can be and get paid for it. But life doesn't work like that. You've got to have some of that knowledge. And it's not just given to you, Neil. You weren't born with that knowledge.
No, well, I don't know where. I think I was just lucky. But do you know what, mate? No business coach ever tells you, right, what you're going to have to do, right, this is what you're going to have to do for probably the first 3, 4, 5 years. You have to put your family, your kids after your business. You're going to have to work 12, 13, 14-hour days. You're going to really probably hate what you do. You're going to go through all this hell. You know what I mean? You're going to have arguments. You're probably almost going to be divorced. Once you do that, then it might start getting good. No business coach tells you that.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? And that's the reality. Well, certainly from what the people I'll say, that's the reality of it, you do come out the other side. You really do come out the other side. And I'm spending more time with my kids and my family now than I could ever dream of. I'm eternally grateful for that. But you know what? I'm still playing catch-up for the times I've neglected them. Still playing massive catch-up. And no one tells you this. No business book ever tells you that.
No, you're right. It's not in any books, is it? It's just life experience. You go through that process, you think it's all going to be exciting and pound notes flying in after pound notes all the way through, and it just doesn't turn out like that. But eventually, like you say, if you get a little bit lucky and you're a little bit smart, then you get to that point in your life where it does seem a little bit better and worth all that sacrifice. But that's my point. Maybe if you do use a business mentor, don't just give that advice. I don't know because I've never spoken to one. And maybe like when we're looking at it from an electrical point of view, we're saying about not sending guys from the pub down someone's house to do electrical work. Perhaps where that guy in the pub giving business advice to people, where somebody who is a business consultant or somebody who's a business coach is the electrical expert in that situation, and they know what they're on about. They might be able to help people.
That's actually a really annoying argument because it's hard to argue with. On that note, what do you reckon, fellas?
I reckon it's been a good one, mate. I'm really enjoying it. Monday Club, it is.
Monday Club every Monday. If anyone wants to come on, there's always a slot. There's no rules. There's no rules.
I'm happy to do it whenever you want. I'm happy to do it whenever.
So
Mark, I think we need to just announce something here. You're now part of the EGTE family, and you are going to be a regular on the EGTE network.
I look so worried, Mark.
You're going to make me cry in a minute.
You're going to be on the website soon and everything. I just haven't got round to it yet.
That's all right. You're busy digging holes.
Yes, I have been.
All he does is
I would love to be part of it.
for years.
I would love to be part of your family. It would be my honour and pleasure.
Well, you're in the circle now. Don't make me kick you out like I've had to a few times to Neil, because sometimes he oversteps the mark. Starts playing with other teams, But it's what
Wednesday
it is.
coming up, isn't there?
On that note, listen, Ricky will get the ump. Like, subscribe. We'll put something around here. Like, subscribe to EGTE. It gets very funny. I listened to the last podcast where we got a bit angsty about, we've got to teach me on what to do on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. So this will be the official first EGTE podcast visually on YouTube, which is awesome.
It is that, but it's the EGTE Monday Club.
EGTE Monday Club.
And I think it's very important. If you want to be on Monday Club, send Neil an email and you're more than welcome. And that is an open invitation.
Yeah, come on. And it's literally no script. We're just going to chew the fat. So on that note, see you later.
Bye.